Hello everyone. So today we'll be solving one Leetcode medium problem named as top k frequent elements. And this has been, again asked in almost all good companies. You see, most of the companies are asking this: Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple, Amazon, Google. Everyone is asking this. So let's read the problem and try to solve it. What we can do, to solve this. The problem says, given an array of integer nums and an integer k. So we'll have an array of integer nums and an integer k. Now we need to return the k most frequent elements, and you may return the answer in any order. Okay, so like ordering doesn't matter to us. We just need to return the k most frequent elements. What do we mean by that? So if you see this array, so here we have 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3. One thing to note that with these two examples, this doesn't say that these numbers are into the sorted order. Okay, so let's do not assume that this number would be into the sorted order because these two examples are similar to that. Yeah, so it says, so if you see, 1 came thrice, so 1 has occurred 3 times, 2 occurred 2 times, 3 occurred once, right? That's the case. So what we need to do, we need to return the k most frequent element. So like 2 frequent, so 3, 1 came thrice, right? So the very first element would be 1, then 2 came twice, right? This is the second time, so that's why we return 2. Now we don't need to return this 3 even, right? Because we only had to return k most frequent element. Okay, one assumption we can make, let's say, what if we have 2 came thrice again, right? 2 is coming 3 times. So again, we can return in our output 1, 2, and let's just make an assumption because ordering could be any order, right? We can return in any order. One more thing, let's say it's not been mentioned. What if 3 again came 3 times, right? So which one to pick? So again, let's just assume that we can return either 1, 2, or we can return 1, 3, right? Any of them, and this should be accepted because we don't see any condition mentioned here. Cool. So based on that, let's try to understand what we can do to solve this problem. First, so I'll just come here and see. So let's say we have 1, 1, 1. Let's just assume we have 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, and 4, right? And k equals to 2. Let's just assume this is the given example. I'm just taking an example, we have similar set of two numbers and few other numbers as well, right? So what can we do to solve this? So one of the way like which we need to do, we need to know the frequency of each numbers first for sure. So to know the frequency, like let's say we can use a map, okay, where let's say we iterate through this entire array and have the frequency into this map or frequency map, right? So we can say whatever the number is coming as a key and its count, let's say this how many times it occurred, that could be its value. Similarly, 2 comma 2 came 3 times, 3 came let's say 2 times, 1 4 came 1 time, right? So this is the map. First we need like the frequency of these numbers. Now once we have the map, what can we do? So one of the approach with the frequency bucket, what we can think of, let's say whatever the length we have, right, of this array, let's just initialize an empty array with one more element. So let's say its length is 336 to 89, right? So let's just assume, let's create a 10 length of number array. This would be 1 2, creating 0 1 2, right? So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, and what we are doing, like, so this numbers will start from 0 1, right? This is how this should get initialized, the array. Now, so one of the scenario could be, let's say every number is like same number and it has been repeated a number of times, right? So if the length is total 9, right? So one, it can occur like either one can occur 9 times, or two can occur 9 times, or four can occur 9 times, right? So whatever the frequency is there into that element, like we can just go ahead and only store our number with that frequency. So let's say if one came 9 times, so one will be stored here, right? What if every number is different, right? If every number is different, like 1 through 9, right? That could be one of the things. So like if every number is different, that means every number has came only once. That means at this particular location, because every number will be one, we'll be storing 1 through 9, like an array here in to this element of the array would be again an array with all the element. That could be one of the way. So the same approach we can follow. Like, so what we are saying, like each element, like each index is nothing but the frequency, and whatever the number has been stored here, that is like how many times that can come. That's the simplest thing we are saying. So let's just implement this given input, and then picture will be clear again. So 4 has come only once, right? So that means frequency of 4 is 1. So at each index, we're going to store an array, right? So here, let's say we're going to store 4. Then at index 3 has come twice, right? That means this is the frequency for us. So this is the index 2 where that is the frequency. So which all number has come twice? So we know that only 3 has come twice. So we'll be storing it here. What about 1 and 2? They have come thrice, right? So at this particular location, we can store either 1 comma 2 or 2 comma 1, whatever, we can go to that. Rest other things like, so now if we are done with this map, like first we'll just go through this array, create a map with that frequency. So that will take big O of n time. And then after that, we'll iterate this map to store these, numbers with their frequency. So frequency being this number came how many times at that particular index, I'll be storing this number. So key is number. So this is the number hour and this is the frequency. So at this particular frequency, I have to store this number. Similarly, at this particular frequency, I have to store this number. That's what we are, going to do. So you see at 3, we have this. Now what we'll do, and other cases which we are not, going to add any numbers, like while initializing the array, we can initialize with something else, let's say null. So each things will be null, right? So everything will be blank. Now we just need the top k frequent element, right? So we know that frequency is higher from the end of the array, right? So let's say if any number is coming 9 times, so we just need to read this index. We don't need to go till here, right? So we'll be starting again from the end of the array, and just make sure those indexes, like those values are not null, read those array only. And then inside that array, read this value k times. So in our output, we are going to, iterate this number till is less than or equal to k. So we know that if you're starting from the end, that means we are first in our output, we are going to push the high frequency numbers. So let's say if k were 3, right, at this particular scenario, so we'll be starting from here, everything is null. We can ignore that. When we are coming here, we got 1, right? An array with 1 comma 2. We'll just iterate again this array, put it here 1 comma 2. And let's say if k were 2, then just return this answer. If k is 3, then again move to the next index, which is 3. And inside that array, we have the number 3. Just push this 3 as well and return this output. So if we had to return top 3 frequent array numbers, that would be 1, 2, 3. So that's what our output would be. So this approach we can follow to solve this. Let's do it quickly. So first thing we just need, let's just go back. First thing we need a map, right? So let map equals, let's initialize a map. Then what do we need? We need an array with all the frequency. Let's call it a frequency bucket. In JavaScript, we can just initialize an array and push in even a later point of time. But our goal is to initialize array with n plus one, whatever the index length plus one, and at every time at this particular location, like 0, we know for sure that 0 is always going to be empty. So we don't have to read this index at all, because 0 means the frequency, like the numbers which are not coming at all. So that's why we are initializing our frequency bucket with array length plus one, right? 10 times. Because here we don't have to store anything. We just, like a number which is coming to this array input array, right? That at least it will come one times. So we have to reach read till here only, right? That's the goal. So we initialize a map an array, and then we need an output variable, right? And that is again an array. Now let's iterate our number array and store the frequency. Sorry. If nums of I, this particular key is in map, right? That's so basically check whether this number is map or not. Otherwise, else block, right? So if you don't have the number in map, then initialize the number map of nums of I with one. If right, so that means for the very first time, if you're encountering one here, what do we mean by that? So how this map will become? So we are going to read this one, right? So very first time, this number was not into the maps at this particular location. We are adding it to one. Now second will go into this if block. If number is already there, then we are just going to increase by plus one. That's what we are just going to do it. So if this is already into map, then just update it with plus one, increment it, I mean to say nums of I plus one. So now if we do this with this loop, now we have this map created, and now we just need to iterate through map and put it into this frequency bucket array. Let's first find the so this is the frequency and this is the number. Key is the number and the value is the frequency, right? So let's store the value as well, because key we have got here, and let's get the frequency as well. So let frequency is equals to map of key. And now what we need to do, and one more thing, let's initialize array values with null as well. That we can just do with this for loop directly, so that we can have a check when we are coming from this end, right? So we can already add a check whether this is, if it's a null, don't read this. If it's not a null, then just go ahead and update our output array. So we need to initialize our frequency bucket as well with null. And what we can do at I plus one equals to null, because let's initialize from one onwards. So we are initializing this null from this location till this location. We don't care about this zero at all, right? That's been initialized, and now we have the frequency. We know the frequency. Then what we just need to do, now we have the frequency and this value. So what we need to do, we got this number and the frequency. So we just need to move this number to this particular frequency location into the frequency bucket, right? So at the very first time, we don't have this anything here. We will having the null, right? We won't be having this initialize this frequency bucket with an array, right? We have initialized with null. So now let's see, let's say if frequency bucket of key key at third place, right? That means the frequency. The frequency bucket of frequency equals to null, like the very first time, right, we are coming. Then what do we do? Frequency bucket of frequency. At this place, we are going to add our first number, right? At this 3. So we are going to add into an array, right? So inside array, pass this key. That's it, right? So very first time, frequency bucket of this frequency, push this number. That means the key. Now, if we already, if it's not a null, that means we know that we have already, pushed this variable. So now we are coming second time. So what do we mean that? So this value is nothing but an array, right? Frequency bucket of frequency is an array. We know that. That frequency bucket of frequency we have initialized with an array and push the first element, right? So now we can just push the second numbers onwards. So just to visualize this again, so when we encounter this one, right? So for the very first time, the shift block is what it's doing here. We are adding here 1. And second time when this 2 is coming, so we just will push it into this particular array, we'll push 2. That's what we are just going to do. So we'll be doing dot push again the key value, right? That's what we'll be doing. So now we are good. So we have done these 2 steps. Now we need to read from the end of the array and in output array push k elements. That's our end goal. So let's just go ahead and start from this end. So let I equals to frequency bucket dot length -1. I is greater than 0. We can ignore this one. Like here we know we won't be saving anything. That's I'm not adding equals to. And one more thing, like output dot length. We can add this condition if output dot length is less than k, because we just need to push k element into our output array, right? So we can just do that, comma I minus minus. So now let's say if the values is not null, then we are going to perform some operation. So we'll see if frequency bucket of I not equals to null, then perform the operation. And what would be the operation? Let's say if we have reached here, right, at this three index number 3. So this is again an array, right? And let's just iterate using a for loop. For let j equals to 0, j should be less than frequency bucket of buck frequency bucket of I dot length. And again here add the condition, the same condition, and output dot length is less than k, right? This one we can add it, comma j plus plus. Then what we need to do in our output array, just push the value, right? So where we are, this frequency bucket of I, comma jth location, right? So I, comma j. That should be it. And once we are done with this, just return this output array. Well, that's it. Let's try to run this. Line number 16, what it's saying. Frequency bucket. Why it's not defined? FREQBUCKET. Okay, looks like every place I have added B as a capital, and what if I change this one? Cool, so should be fine. Let's frequency line number 27, what it says here, Q is missing. if frequency, okay, here again b is small. Okay, yeah, so this has been accepted. Let's try to submit it. So this is again accepted. Now let's try to think through the runtime complexity and space-time complexity. So space complexity would be big O of n, right? Let's say if each number is entirely different, right? So that would be the space big O of n. What would be the runtime complexity? So this block we know this is big O of n. This is again big O of n. What about this one? So the condition could be, let's say, if each numbers are different, right? Sorry, let's just assume if each number is same, right? If each number is same, then the outer for loop will run only once, right? Only once, and this loop will run n times. If each number is same, then yeah, this will loop because at this particular index will no, if 9 times came, right? So this loop will again run only once. So this would be big O of whatever the constant number. What if each numbers are different? 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, right? So we'll be iterating from here till here, right? And here what we'll be doing, again, we will be iterating big O of n, right? So this loop will go big O of n, but this won't run for all the numbers because this will be like null condition will come. The moment we reach to this particular index 1, then again will be this block will run n times. So this should be big O of n again, which I'm saying, or log n. So I think it should be big O of n again here. So time complexity should be again big O of n here. Yep. So that's it for today. Let's try to solve the next question in next video.